the older you get, the harder it may be for some to find friendships, like newer friendships, right? I think that the older you get, the harder it is to find more like-minded people, and people are in their own groups already. So I think that adult friendships are challenging from that standpoint in terms of finding new friendships. But for your existing sister friends, I think it can be challenging because life gets to lifing, and you kind of take for granted, now I'm speaking personally, you kind of take for granted that you will have tomorrow to catch up with that girlfriend.
Hi, I'm Peavy.
Hi, I'm Jamie, and welcome to Blank is a Mother podcast.
We are two toddler boy moms that have been best friends since college, and we are here to share our unique motherhood journeys through a comparative lens.
And we all say we're not supposed to compare, right? But clearly we know that's not realistic.
Because the first few years of motherhood shook our lives and friendship like no other experience has.
And by comparing and contrasting our journeys, we've discovered the strongest threads of sisterhood yet.
We don't have all the answers, and we sure have made some missteps.
So we invite you to follow along as we do our best to nurture our friendship while making 1,000 tiny mama decisions in an unfair world.
Hi, I'm Peavy.
Hi, I'm Jamie, and welcome to Blank is the Mother podcast. It's been a minute. We had a little bit of a hiatus. Thank you all for your patience. As you know, I'm going through my own journey of the reconstruction process as we speak today for my breast cancer journey. So, it's been a little crazy, but we're back in the groove. I'm feeling a lot better than I was a couple weeks ago. So thank you, Peavy, for your patience. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. We're ready to rock.
Yeah, we've gotten actually a lot of questions about how you're doing and where you are in the journey. Do you want to give like the 2-minute version of all the dips and trips that you've had?
I will. I'll spare you all my details because if you don't know by now, I will tell you every minor detail, which y'all don't need to know all that. I'll spare your time. But Cliff's Notes, I came down with some sort of infection in my left breast, had to have surgery. This is going back to Thanksgiving time to remove the expander in my left breast because she just was not cooperating. So since November, I have been expanderless in my left breast and full expander, filled with saline in my right breast. So I'm a little lopsided right now, but it's all good. But I haven't had my numbers regulated enough to allow them to fully release me for surgery. Every time I think that I'm scheduled for surgery to put the expander back in, my numbers show off.
What kind of numbers?
Sorry, there is a marker. See, you ask that, then I'm going to give you all the details, which I said I wasn't going to do for y'all because I love y'all. But quickly, I get blood work done. I'm under the care of an infectious disease team because the infection that I got in my left breast was staph, which is serious. As you all know, I spent 5 nights in the hospital trying to get all that worked out. But now with my infectious disease team, they take my blood work and there is a marker within your blood work. I think it's called the PCR. And I could lie to y'all wouldn't know the damn difference because I don't even know that's the one. But it's a marker in your blood work that is an indication of inflammation and infection. And if you're getting your blood work done at Quest, it's different than, what's the other one, LabCorp? They have different parameters. But at Quest, who is my vendor, they like that marker to be 8 or less to be considered normal for you to be released to do, next steps. When I did my blood work, what was that, 2 weeks ago now? It was at 20. So it was like 2.5 times the normal amount. Prior to that blood work, I was scheduled for the expander surgery on February 16th, which has since been kicked to the 21st in hopes that my appointment tomorrow, which is February 15th, will give me clean margins in my blood work so that I can be released officially for the 21st. So that's the latest. Let's hope, please, because I just want this breasticist to get back to where she was so that we can move through the process. I will say the positive piece is that I remind myself all the time that this is temporary and I'm still cancer-free. That has not changed. And so the reconstruction process has proven to be a little bit more challenging than we thought, but I'm a tough chick and I have great support. And my body is working as hard as it can for me. So I just need to keep fueling it with things other than coffee. Which is my favorite thing. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate you all sending your love and prayers and support. It has been a journey, but we'll get through it. And when I get my new boobs, y'all are going to be sick of me. You hear me? I'm going to have every V-neck, every tank top. Woo! Like I've earned my cleavage back when it's here. So just get ready, y'all.
Okay, today we are talking about Galentine's as a mother.
Adult friendships.
Yeah, it is Valentine's Day. And was it the show Friends or one of these shows got Galentine's Day on the map and now everybody celebrates Galentine's Day? Was it Friends?
You know I'm Black. We didn't watch Friends. We watched Girlfriends.
I should look this up.
And let me just say this to our white listeners. That's no shade to Friends. I know my white friends love them some Friends, the show, but I didn't get into it as much.
Parks and Rec. That's why. Parks and Rec was way better than Friends, in my opinion. Brett and I do not celebrate Valentine's Day. Do you and John?
We do, but we celebrate Valentine's Day like any other thing that we celebrate, where we say Happy Valentine's Day and I love you so much and you're amazing. And so I did have an appointment today, as you know, about like a job related thing. And when I came back, there were roses on the table. So he's very thoughtful in that way, but we don't celebrate where we need to go to dinner and we need to do all of these things. We recognize it. And Valentine's Day for me is that much more significant because it's my mom's birthday. So we celebrate, but we don't go all out.
It's also Brett's grandmother's birthday, and it's also our niece, Rocky's birthday.
Oh, cool.
A lot of birthdays. Happy birthday, y'all.
That's right.
All these lovely ladies born on Galentine's Day.
That's right.
Yeah, we thought that today could be a fun day to talk about something that is very challenging, I think, for midlife women, especially moms, but not really exclusive to moms. It really just all women in their 30s, 40s, and beyond. We wanted to talk about adult friendships and how it is hard to have adult friendships. Why is that?
Well, I think it's hard for a couple reasons. I think it's hard because I'm generalizing, but the older you get, the harder it may be for some to find friendships, like newer friendships, right? I think that the older you get, the harder it is to find more like-minded people, and people are in their own groups already. So I think that adult friendships are challenging from that standpoint in terms of finding new friendships. But for your existing sister friends, I think it can be challenging because life gets to lifing and you kind of take for granted. Now I'm speaking personally, you kind of take for granted that you will have tomorrow to catch up with that girlfriend. Mm-hmm. It's even gotten to the point, and you and I have had to do this, where time is so tight that you find yourselves having to schedule time to chat. Like, okay, when can we talk? It's like a job. Can you talk Sunday at about 5? How does that look for your calendar? Let me look at my calendar. Well, the kid has swim practice, so maybe can we do it 7? It's like we now have to schedule time to talk, which I think is necessary. It's crazy that when you get older, your friendships turn into calendaring time to catch up.
I mean, shit, we had to create a podcast to make sure that we talked regularly.
So. Right.
Yeah, those are like two buckets, two different things, I think. So maybe we can dissect them a little bit. So let's tackle the first one first that you mentioned, which is trying to find new friends, make new friends in your adult life, 30s, 40s. Once you're into your career, you maybe have a family started or are deep into your family unit, whatever that looks like, whether you're an auntie or a sister or any of those things that take up a lot of your time because you love those relationships and you're investing in those. And it's easy to be like, I have these great circles of friends from all my years getting to this point. And so do I even need new friends? Why do I need new friends? And then for me, I do want friends who live where I live, but I just have a really hard time. And maybe this is unique to me because I am a New Yorker living in Southern California. I love the friends that I have, like you, that we don't need to be doing anything. Like we can sit on the couch or we can go out to a place where we can go dancing and have fun. And anything in between, we have the same great time doing all those things. And it's not about who's where and what we're doing and what we're wearing or who else is going to be there and all that. So that's what I struggle with. And there's plenty of people that I really like. but it's hard. I still find it hard to connect with them on that level. Like, can I just
Mm-hmm.
come over, or can you just come over, sit on the couch? I need to fold laundry and I want to talk about this thing that's bugging me.
Yeah. No, that's real, Pete. Well, you mentioned a couple things in there. One is geography, because as a northerner, grew up in Maryland, and now I live in Florida. Even culturally, it's different because in Florida, I feel like there are a lot of transient people that'll be here for like a couple years and then they leave. Or it's a different dynamic for anybody that's born and raised in Florida than for someone that like us that came from up north, kind of coming into a new culture in the South.
Mm-hmm.
So there are different dynamics there geographically, even I think with finding people that you naturally connect with. And not that I haven't naturally connected with people, it's just a different dynamic than when you meet someone when you're also like 17 as opposed to 43. Oh, there was a geography and there was another part that took me to a thought of, I think that we use the word friend. A lot of us use the word friend so loosely.
Loosely.
And really, we have our homies, our friends, our acquaintances or associates. So I think the friendships get broken up into even more buckets the older that we get. Then you add your work friends in there too. If you're working in like a corporate setting or nonprofit setting where you're seeing people, you have your work friends that y'all may kiki during the workday and then you don't see them again until Monday, right? There's no like interaction outside of work. It's very interesting. Like with me being here in Florida, I remember when I first moved here, I was like, I don't really know if I need, I'm using air quotes, new friends because I have a great group of sister friends already. And I just need to figure out Florida for myself. Since I've been here, I've met some great women and men,
Yeah.
people,
Girlfriends.
girlfriends. But it's still a different dynamic than, like you said, than with your friends that you've grown up with. It's just
Mm-hmm.
different. Not good or bad. It's just different.
It is different. And I think part of it is just time. Like you spent so much time and you've had so many experiences with your homies that
Hmm.
they know you so well. They just love and accept you however you come into their lives that day, that moment. And you don't even have to think twice about it. That's like a luxury and a gift that you don't have with these newer friends. And I will say our struggle, Brett and I, there's, plenty of people in our community that we like and wish we could spend more time with and wish we could like create stronger bonds with. But I don't know if we're just special. I don't mean that in a good way. That we don't have like a babysitter on lock that we can just call all the time. And we
Mm.
can't go out to dinner every night. And we can't go do all these social things that cost money, which seem to be the only social things that some of these people do. And then you like sit around and then you say, oh, look at that on social media. Look at all those things that they're doing. And we weren't invited to do them. But that could just be because they know we don't have a babysitter. Or they know we're not going to fork over the money to do it. And so maybe they're just being
Hmm.
considerate. Oh, I don't think this is something that they would want to do or whatever. But to me, I wish that we had the kind of friends that we could just be like, yeah, it's shit's chaos. Yeah, Everett's kirking out. Like, come over and be in it with us, or we can come over and be in it with you, and it doesn't matter. We don't have to worry about apologizing for how we look or Everett's tantrum or whatever. And I will say we do have a couple of those kinds of friends in town, but they're so damn busy.
Yeah. Yeah.
That it gets back to your other point of like, even if we wanted to be with them in those moments, like months go by and then we finally find time to spend with them, and it's like you just want more. I don't know, I just feel like there's not enough time in our busy schedules, even since all of our schedules have turned upside down with COVID and after COVID. We still don't have enough time for our friends as adults, and it makes me pissed off.
I know. Like as we were talking earlier, it's like, well, let's find some time to get together. Like we'll go somewhere and we'll chill out and we'll catch up. And then it's like, well, wait a minute, let me look at my calendar. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
when can we do that? It may not be until I'm making it up till September, but based on schedules, whatever that is. But it's life is a constant reminder to me of a couple things. Procrastination, like saying I'm going to call that person tomorrow or I'm going to see that person in a couple months. Procrastination to me is nothing but built on an unrealistic assumption that tomorrow will come.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really trying, and I'm failing miserably. I know it. but I'm really trying to be intentional about like if someone crosses my mind to send them a note right then in that moment. We just don't have any control over what's around the corner.
Yeah, and I don't know what the solution is. What I did try for a while before we launched this podcast was getting off social media. And
Mm-hmm.
that did help my just like mental health because then I wasn't aware of all these social things happening that we weren't a part of. So I didn't have that like, oh, do we have friends? I don't know if we do have friends. I thought they were our friends, but maybe they're not our friends, or like, it's just social media is stupid and fake. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it was good for me to get off it for a while. But then, I had some other reasons why I wanted to be on it again. And so I'm on it again and pros and cons of that. But I don't know, we try to bring resources and suggestions to this community when we talk about things. And I don't really know what the solution is. Like, I just try to be me and my authentic self and show up like that all the time, regardless of who it is I'm interacting with. And I try to be thoughtful. If a book reminds me of someone's kid, I drop it off to their house, or
Mm-hmm.
just like things like that that make me feel good about being a friend. Like, I just try in my most authentic way to be a good friend to other people, even if whatever bucket they're in, an acquaintance, a
Mm-hmm.
work friend, or a homie. Like, I just try to be happy with how I am showing up as a friend and then hope that I'll get something back. But I'm being real, like a lot of disappointment with adult friendships.
Let me ask you this, and I think that's a perfect segue. So you're talking about disappointment with adult friendships. What is that rooted in? I'll give you some context behind that question because, in my opinion, some things are rooted in our expectations of our friends and how they should show up. And I think that I can say this for me specifically. I've had to shift my expectations based on what I have the capacity to do and not do now compared to what my capacity was even 10 years ago. Hell, even 5 damn years ago. And so when we say that adult friendships are disappointing, is that because we are still holding our friends to our homies to the same expectations of time and investment that we were 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago? And what does a mutually enjoyable friendship look like today?
I will say 1,000% disappointment that, and I'll speak for myself, that I feel around anything is you hit the nail on the head. Exactly rooted in some expectation that I have that is not met. And so then I'm disappointed by it. I didn't probably explain it well when I said that. The only thing I know how to do is shift my focus from that expectation to how do I want to show up? How am I going to feel good as being the kind of friend that I want to be that makes me feel good? So that's kind of how I shift, like I pivot from the disappointment that I feel because I have these unrealistic expectations, regardless of which bucket they're in, whether they're new acquaintance friends or, like just friends because our kids are friends or whatever, or our homies, like your expectations are different of all of those people. But you
Mm-hmm.
still, at least me, I still have expectations. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's like a weird chicken and egg thing, right? Like I have these expectations because friendship is something I really, really value and always have. Like friends are the
Mm-hmm.
family that you can choose. And so that's like a big part of your life if you make it. And so I put a lot into that. And that might be, I mean, everyone has their own like backstory, right? That could be because, my home life was a little chaotic, turmoil, wasn't like a cushy, fun thing. Like I look at my nieces, they have like such a warm and loving, and, that's their like little safe zone. And I didn't necessarily have that growing up. So I had to create that. And so to me, it's like a really sacred, cherished part of my life that like these, and now I'm really speaking to the homies, but like these people are my family because I've chosen to treat them like that throughout life. Yeah. So it hurts a little different when you feel like it's not being reciprocated.
Right.
And I don't mean like certain moments. It's kind of like the cumulative effect. It's not like any one thing. And I say this too with like the acquaintance thing and or trying to develop new friendships. Like it's never one thing. It's just the cumulative effect. I can get in this like sunken into my disappointment. But I think what you said, it's really, really important to remind yourself, recognize like this disappointment that you're feeling is a you thing. It's not a them thing, right? Like
Mm.
they're showing up how they are able to show up.
Mm-hmm.
And they have their own shit going on. So you can either shift your expectations or shift your focus to something else. And so I can't say I've done a great job of shifting my expectations, which I probably should spend more time like figuring out how to do that. But I have like what I just do is try to shift my focus back to myself. This is a really selfish thing, I think. But whenever I am feeling down or depressed or disappointed or whatever, I try to do something for someone else and it makes me feel better.
Ooh, can you elaborate on that? Like, can you give an example?
Yeah. Like if I'm like in my feelings about whatever, I might write someone a letter and send it because I know that when they receive it, they're going to get a warm, fuzzy feeling like, oh, this person was thinking of me. Or I'll send a package, or I'll, if someone had been talking about trying something new, I might just send it to them so that they can,
Mm-hmm.
just something a little thoughtful. And I know the receiver is probably like, wow, that was so thoughtful. But really, selfishly, it made me feel better. Like, what kind of fucked up psychology is that?
I mean, I ain't gonna lie, I got some cards and some packages, and now I'm thinking, well, what you trying to tell me, bitch? I mean, excuse me. I'm like,
Not
wait a
all
minute,
the
didn't I
time.
get a card
Yeah.
last week in the mail?
It is my norm, and you know this. It's my
I know, I'm just
norm to do
joking.
that stuff. But I like double down on it when I'm feeling shitty.
I understand.
I'm like, okay, these things make me feel good. So I'm just going to do that so that I feel better about everything and not think about the things that I'm not receiving. It's all fucked up. I don't think it's like super healthy. I'm just saying.
No, but I appreciate the honesty. I'm gonna go back and look at my damn cards. But no, but that's real, Peeve. No, I think I'm learning that too. I've had to, and this is a comment and a question. I've had to even back away from certain friendships because I felt like they were taking emotional withdrawals and not making emotional deposits to offset those withdrawals. And so at some point, I'm like, what friendships, relationships, my homies are mutually beneficial relationships. We're getting a lot out of our dynamic together. And so with one particular friend that I've had forever, I'm talking about like elementary school age, I started feeling like, what am I getting out of this friendship, out of this relationship? Because I feel like I'm always being reached out to when there's a need, when there's an ask, when they're going through something. And it's like, can I rely on this person to provide the same level of support that I'm giving them? And
Mm-hmm.
it took me a while to get there because I'm like, well, I've known this person for so long and they're lifing just like I'm lifing. So I don't want to be too critical, So, and I know it could take me a week to get back to a text message. So who am I to cast, to throw stones? I know that I'm a little slow, so I can't judge that person on that. But after a while, like you said, the cumulative effect led me to make a decision that I no longer needed to let this person to that level. And so they moved from like a homie status to acquaintance
Mm-hmm.
because the tenure's there and there's a lot of love there and a lot of background there. But then it's also at some point in adult relationships when you need to reevaluate that relationship and reevaluate which bucket that person needs to go in. And
Mm-hmm.
just because you've known someone for 30 years does not mean that they need to stay in a certain bucket, just like you could know someone for 2 years and they could be in your homie bucket. I think that at some point, reevaluating what you're getting out of a friendship is valuable because if you're not getting out as much as you think that you should or that you want, knowing that you are giving as much as yourself as you can, I think there's value in reevaluating adult friendships as well, especially when you only have a couple hours in a day after you've washed the baby, fed the baby, talked to the husband a little bit, put on your pajamas, read a little bit, get on social media, which is a black hole. After you have all of that, you only have so many more hours left to give to your people. And so who are those people that you'd want to allocate that time to? And are you the person that they would reciprocate that?
Absolutely. Yes. I love this little left turn you took into you have to be selective. in adult friendships, like who are you putting in those buckets and which buckets? And yeah, it's hard. It's really hard to shift your friendship with someone that you've had at a certain level for so long, or to completely break up with a friend, which I have done. It's hard to do that. And, there's various ways you can choose to do that, like whether that's like an actual conversation with that person and you are just really upfront about it, or you just let it fade away. And that's kind of what I've done with some of these adult friendships. I'm like, let me just, like you said, like kind of like set a new boundary, back up a little bit, not reach out, because I'm noticing this pattern. I'm always the one reaching out to them. So let me just back up. Let me set a little boundary. I'm not going to reach out for, however long. Oh, this person just has never reached out to me. Well, that's telling, or
Yeah.
I always have to show up at this person's doorstep. They never show up at my doorstep, whether they live in the same town or across the country or whatever. Like these are all things that I think it is really valuable to like take stock. What am I putting into this and what am I getting back? And even though I really am happy that we had this awesome friendship for all these years, it's just not part of my life anymore. And so I need to evolve, let this evolve and let that stay in my past, and then focus on the relationships that are really serving me, that I'm getting a lot out of, the same that I'm putting into them moving forward.
I love that. Reason, season, lifetime. There's a reason why someone's in your life. Everybody has their season. Your season may be until I take my last breath, or your season may have been to get through college and then we keep it moving, But every friendship has had a reason. And whether we're still as tight or not, there was still some reason why we were in each other's lives, regardless of the time. Then you have some people that are in for a season. You were in through high school. Okay, now we've moved on. Now you're in through college. People like you been through college through, you can't get rid of me. So you'll be there till, the last day. And then you have lifetime. Well, that is the lifetime part. Somebody said it first, but I loved that. I always said a reason, a season, and a lifetime. Everybody that I meet, and I'm a Libra, and I know you know this about me, Pete. I make fast friends because I'm so stinking social. And so I want to chit chat with everybody. I want to know about your dog's name. I want to know where your grandmother lives, like all the things. But then I had to realize that I can't, everybody's not going to be lifetime. And that's okay.
So that kind of brings us to that second part of adult friendships. And that's when you do have your homies that you've had for a really long time. So it's kind of the flip side of what you just said. So rather than like you sort of having that feeling and that intuition, like, okay, I think that this season of the friendship is coming to an end and I'm going to keep moving on and I'm at peace with that. And it's kind of like my decision. What about the flip side when you have these adult friendships with who you consider homies that you're like, where is that person? Why are they so silent? Or, like, why don't I hear from them anymore? Like, why has the dynamic shifted? Like, I feel like I'm still showing up in the same way. I still love this person dearly. What's going on? And I think geography is really hard because those people that you've had in your life for so long probably don't live next door. They probably do live in a different state. And I kind of feel like this is like very, very high level, that COVID hit and immediately everyone felt isolated, right? But on the flip side, they also leaned in hard to connecting with their people however they could, whether that was like group chats or sending video messages or, it was just like all of a sudden piled on. And I think that was really, really beneficial to me and appreciated by me in particular because of where I was in my life. I had a brand new baby at home. You too. Like we were really in it in a time period in your life when under normal circumstances, you could feel very isolated and alone and disconnected from your community. And so in a way, I feel like COVID actually gave us some new opportunities that we wouldn't have had to be connected on a more like a deeper, maybe more frequent level, because everyone was like thirsty for that connection because they didn't want to be all cooped up by themselves in their house. And then as time went on, that faded. And I think also all these things happened in the world where now there's like social unrest and all of this uprising of lots of things and global wars and climate change and like major, major stuff that is happening that people's priorities have completely shifted in their lives. And fair enough,
Mm-hmm.
all your adult friendships shake out under that context, you know?
Yep.
And then
Yep.
you're like, huh, am I not in that person's inner circle anymore because of all of these other things that are completely outside of my control? Or is it because something happened between us? Or is it because I had a baby? Or, you know, like what are the things? And it's hard to even think
Mm-hmm.
about all those things, especially in these last couple of years because it's just like a crazy world. But also, it's hard to even bring that kind of stuff up with a person to be like, hey, let's talk about all these really hard things to talk about when really all I want to do is like post up on a beach with you and have a cocktail and just like pretend everything's fine.
Mm-hmm. I'll build on that because I do think there's certain situations where those conversations are difficult. And I think there's certain situations when those conversations are not. And I agree 200% when you said that COVID kind of shook out certain things. There's certain people that I was closer to. And then once the COVID dust hit, it's like, okay, they're probably more of an acquaintance. And that's okay too. That just is what it is. But I think as part of the shakeout, when the acquaintances kind of rolled off to the acquaintance bucket and you're left with your friends bucket and your homies bucket, the homies, we'll talk about them separately. In that friends bucket, when you're like, you either can be a homie or you're a friend, or what is that relationship like now post COVID? I think if we evaluated and said, okay, of the 10 people, I'm making it up, in this friend bucket, how many of these people, like who am I the closest to? Who do I feel the deepest connection to or with? And I think those people, let's say there are 4 people out of that 10 that you're like, yeah, man, like these are really my people. And we, I need to figure out why we aren't communicating as much. Those 4 people, I think it's easy to have that conversation. What's up? Man, we've really stopped talking. What's up? Is it us? Is it the political climate? Is it whatever? But I think it's easier to have those conversations because you genuinely want to know where things kind of went left. At that same time, you're looking in that bucket saying, well, I haven't really spoken to these 6 people. Do I miss those interactions? Or was I interacting just because that's what I'd been conditioned to believe, like, was what I should be doing based on our social circles? And if I don't really miss those 6, then that may be those 6 that, like you said, just kind of fade off into the background. And it's all love when you see them, but it's like, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I think those a handful of people that you're like, I really miss them. Like, I don't know where we went wrong, but I care enough to ask.
Mm-hmm.
And I think COVID helped us figure that dynamic out, for me at least.
Yeah, there was no hiding because we went through we now can look back and see was extremely unsustainable of like everyone's so busy, 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 busy. And then everyone was not busy at all and making all these deposits, as our friend
Yep.
colleague would say, to our friendship buckets. Yeah. And then we went back to whatever our new normal is. And then, yeah, everything's a little different in all of those realms of our lives.
I think friendships through motherhood changed too in adult life because, like for us, since we started after we were a little bit more seasoned, if you will. And I was just talking about this earlier today with the client that I actually met with. We got into personal lives and just chit chatting to get to know each other. And she had her child very young. She was like 23 or 24, I think she said, when she had her daughter. And so she and her husband now are in the age where they have adult children. He had a daughter with another, in another relationship. She had a daughter. So their daughters are like 3 days apart, but they're in their mid 20s now. And so now she and her husband are getting to live life. And so they're doing their thing and they're traveling and exploring and doing all of that because their children are grown. And so their friendship dynamic probably looks different. They're probably, I imagine, I don't know, with other circles where kids are all older and they can do more together as adult couples that don't have to worry about any damn kids. For us more seasoned mothers that started later, it's changed the dynamic. And if I have friends whose kids are older, it may be harder to find time to connect when your kid is out hanging out with its friends and my kid still needs help putting a pull-up on before it's time for bed. Motherhood has maybe changed not all friendships, not all dynamics, because not all my friends have kids.
Yeah.
And that hasn't changed dynamics with my friends that don't have kids. But generally speaking, having kids even later in life can change the dynamic because your priorities have shifted.
It's a season for sure. Having young kids is a season. You're constantly
Mm-hmm.
exhausted, you're sleep deprived, you have a lot of demands of your time, every waking moment. It's definitely a season.
Do you think that men go through the same thing? Or people who identify as men, I should say?
I bet they do, but don't think as much about it. They don't let it
Uh-huh.
like seep into their day-to-day thoughts. And yeah, I don't know. I don't want to generalize all men. Like there's certainly many,
Of course.
many men who are invested in their friendships. But I mean, Brett is just like, I have my homies from back in the day, and everyone else
Mm-hmm.
is just like icing on the cake. And I might not have any icing for a while, and that's fine. I don't care.
Yeah, if you want that dry cake, go ahead and have your dry cake with the icing on it. But that works for him.
Yeah, but it also puts more pressure on the you and the me to be their friend as well as their
Mm.
lover and as well as their partner and co-parent and all the things. And not that I don't love being friends with my husband, but he is actually very adamant about like, yeah, we're friends, but we're lovers, and you're not my best friend. Like there's some things I would talk to my best friends about that I'm not going to talk to you about. So I get that, but I will
Huh.
say for social stuff, like, and I love doing stuff with my husband. I love it. And I wish we had more time and money to do more of it. But I also don't need to go to like every concert with him and every go out to happy hour with him or go walk on the beach with him. You know, I love doing that stuff with him, but I also want to do it with other people because you get different things out of different relationships. And to generalize, I think that men often will like seek that from their female partners as well when their icing is dry. Um, so it just can be a lot. Yeah.
John definitely has a circle outside of me like Brett does.
But are they the
I mean,
homies or does he have like,
he definitely has homies.
yeah.
He definitely does. Like they take their trips together. You know, they went to Colombia last year, and I think they went to Costa Rica the year before to go fishing. So he definitely has his homies. I think John's the same way. He has his homies and his acquaintances, and then everybody else he knows in the community. He's very involved in the community.
Mm-hmm.
But that question came up because I'm generalizing. I find that I'll speak for John. If a friendship isn't really working out, let's just say, he keeps it moving. Like, all right.
Yeah.
My brother's the same way. He's like, I'm like, have you talked to such and such? He was like, no, I ain't talked to that dude in like a long time. And then he moves on.
Yeah.
So, and I find like that I'm generalizing for women, I feel like we take it a little bit more personally. If we are
Mm-hmm.
disconnected from someone that we were close with at one point, we're like
Yeah.
dissecting it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, what happened? Do I reach out or do I just let it fade?
Yeah, absolutely. There was one thing that kind of came up for me when you were talking, and that is when you have a circle of friends, the one-on-one dynamic of adult friendships is one thing, and then there's the group dynamics of friendships.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I subscribe to like you don't have to, and if you have a group of friends, you don't have to invite everybody to everything all the time. That's exhausting and like ridiculous. Not that you don't think about those dynamics when you're planning something, but it's even more interesting when you have these, you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever. Your life is so busy. You're trying so hard to, like, it just was easier when we were younger to organize some big thing. Oh, yeah, girls'
Mm-hmm.
trip here. Before you have kids and before your life is crazy, it's just easier to schedule that stuff. So that's one aspect is just not getting the group FaceTime that you always were used to getting, which I think that just like helps solidify year after year your friendship when you're able to get together in person year after year
Mm-hmm.
or however frequently you can. And then there's like all these intergroup dynamics that all of a sudden you're like, this is getting tricky to navigate as we get older because people,
That's a good point.
as you age, you get more stuck in your personality traits and your ways, and that's fine. That's normal. That's life. But it definitely infiltrates your group dynamics. And then it's like, how do you stay Switzerland? Do you, start having like the side chats? Do you cut people out of the group? It can get dicey.
For sure. Oh, that's a good one. Because you're right. People have in group dynamics, generally speaking, you have your relationships one-on-one. presumably with all or most of the people in the group. And then you still have clusters.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the whole group dynamic. And to your point, it's like, how do you navigate all of those things? And I love that you mentioned that everybody in a group dynamic does not need to be invited to everything. I mean, it's okay to have one-on-one time with people in the group. I used to feel some type of way about that. It's like, oh, well, we can do this, but should we invite the rest of the group, because of the optics of it? And then finally, at one point, it's like, everybody is a grown person. If it's, Peeve, let's you and I go to, what was that hotel in LA?
Oh, the Roosevelt or
Thank you.
yeah.
Let's go to the Roosevelt and sit by the pool and drink at least 3 bottles of champagne and catch up. There shouldn't be any guilt feeling like we didn't invite anybody else to join us. So
Yeah.
I like that point with the group dynamic.
Yeah. There's a lot there, and it's hard to be in the group dynamic the older you get, I think. But it can be either way. It can be, there's like one group of my homies that I have from high school that we just keep adding to the group. Lady in, and then it just gets like stronger and more fun and better. And I don't know if that's just because we all grew up together and we have so much in common from being from the same place and like having the same background. That could be it. So there's like that type of group dynamics where you just keep adding and it's just getting better and better and better. And then there's the group dynamic, like it's always been there, but now it's different and people are falling off, or this person isn't as like friendly with the other person now. And it just gets more tricky. And then you're like, what do we do with that?
Yeah. And I think that'll keep changing. I think that'll keep happening. I only have one group chat. It's with y'all. It's like one predominant group chat, I should say, with our group. And then I have a sprinkling of handful of other like groups. But outside of a sprinkling of groups, it's usually just my one-on-one and my family chat.
Family chats, that's a whole nother.
I have about 3 family chats. It's like, who's in which chat? But you know what? Going back real quickly to something that you said about Brett mentioning or saying, like, you're my lover, but you're not my best friend. And John and I have had this conversation a couple times, and it brings into the fold my parents. Maxine and Coco, let it be known, and they have no shame in their game. They don't have any friends. They are, they don't. They have family. But my mom, maybe when I was like in high school, went on like 1 or 2 girls trips with a handful of like women that were also teaching the school. You are not going to catch Maxine or Coco for that matter. My dad saying, I'm going to go out with the homies. He don't have any homies. His homie is Maxine. You're not going to catch my mom saying, I'm going on a girls trip. She ain't got any homies. She has her sisters and she has my dad. Of course, her nieces and nephews. But my mom and dad are from the mindset of, I don't need friendships. I don't want friendships. I don't need adult friendships. I don't want adult friendships. When you add people and friendships into the mix, it can be a little fuzzy. And they're old school. They're like, with our marriage is this and that's sacred. We don't need we don't need to do couple stuff. We don't need to be around a whole bunch of people. Your dad and I are each other's best friends. And that's all we need. So I'm not saying anything that they wouldn't say. They're like, we don't have friends.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot of pressure though, huh? And I don't mean like they are a well-oiled machine. Like there's no pressure that they feel now. But like, what if something happens to one of them?
Yeah.
It could be anything.
Yeah.
And then there's a huge void for the other person. And then they just start from scratch to build their community.
And like my mom has, her sisters, and we have a huge family on my mom's side. So she has her community, but her best friend and only best friend is my dad. Mm-hmm. She's like, we don't do couples things. We don't introduce a lot of people to our dynamic. This is what works for us. We're 48 years in. He is my best friend. If you ask my dad, you ain't got to ask him. He may talk once every quarter on the phone with someone he went to college with. And they're like 2 people that he's still connected with. I'm using air quotes. Nope. It is Maxine and Coco, and that's it. And so it's so interesting thinking of that old school mindset to what you were saying about you and Brett saying like, you're my lover, but you're not my best friend. And John and I have had that conversation because I'm like, well, you're my best friend. Like I talk to you about everything. And he's like, John, oh yeah, sweetie. I agree. But I also have best friends. I'm like, oh, I have best friends too. Mm-hmm. But you're my best friend. He's like, yeah. So I think John probably thinks more along the lines of Brett and you, where I'm like, no, my husband should be my best friend because culturally for my family dynamic. Now, the difference is I will go on girls trips and John will go on guy trips. Like we're not all up on each other where we can't do something independently. But I still label him as like, my husband's my best friend. And that's probably rooted in what I have learned to be true about my parents.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I mean, I definitely consider Brett my life partner, and you have to have a very deep, deep connection and friendship to have that be true. But
Yeah.
there's certain things that I would talk to my best friends about that I'm just not going to talk to Brett about.
I guess that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. I never thought about it that way. I think it's just the language was there because that's what I grew up with. But you're right. There are certain things. I talk to John about a lot, but there are certain things that I'd probably talk to you separately about.
Whew. Well, I mean, I don't think we cracked any codes in this conversation.
Not a damn one. Mm-mm.
Just more commiserating. But it's hard. It's hard, but it's worthwhile. And I go back to what I said at the beginning. I still really, really cherish my friendships. They are my chosen family. Even though it's hard, I think it's worth it, to keep navigating it and evolving and making it work in your season or maybe a lifetime.
Mm-hmm. But I do think that there were a couple nuggets in there that we can bring back to the forefront, which is reestablishing expectations of what we expect our friends, how we expect our friends to show up for us, given that life dynamics can get in the way. So I think reestablishing expectations, which buckets your people fall into, maybe reevaluating those buckets and making sure that we're not allowing people to deplete our energy who aren't making deposits and they're just making withdrawals.
Mm-hmm.
And not feeling that we have to be tied to friendships just because they're tenured. Because you can know someone for 30, 35 years and that relationship no longer serves you, but you're committed to it because you're committed. Whereas you can have a newer person come into your life that may fill the void of the person that had been there for 30 some years. So I think there were some nuggets in there. I don't know if we gave any solutions, but we gave things to think through.
Yeah. And just staying true to yourself. Because I think it's easy to be like, should I do more of this? Or, should we be more social? should we do X, Y, and Z? It's like, no, we are us. We got to keep being us. And our people will be drawn to us just like we're drawn to them. And that's the real shit right there. That's the real shit.
Absolutely. And it's challenging, but like you said, it's worth navigating those waters because when you do find a true sister friend, there's really nothing like it. I mean, to the point where you can, like you said, if I want to throw my dirty drawers on the couch and fold them, or my clean, I'd be folding the clean ones, y'all. I ain't that trifling. If I want to throw my clean drawers on the couch and fold them up, I should be able to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not that trifling, y'all, I promise.
Yeah.
But to do laundry in front of your people and just catch up, without feeling like there are any pretenses, those are hard to find.
And I have to say, I think it's also okay to be in your feelings and be sad sometimes when you're like, I wish I had those people up the street and I don't. So I better call that bitch tomorrow because I miss her.
100%.
Yeah.
And I will say the telltale sign of a true sisterhood is not only because you've known each other forever, but because you can live on different coasts or in different states and still stay as connected. We haven't been on the same coast really since you left Duke.
Yeah, it's been a long time. And shout out to those friends too, who for whatever reason, your dynamic is not that you call each other every month or whatever, but when you do see each other, you just pick up where you left off. My roommate from Miami, Lindsay, she is like that. We could literally go 4 years without seeing each other. And then it's like, I'm going to come visit you. Awesome. Or we're going to go meet in Idaho or wherever the hell we go. And it's just like, boom, those friends are worth gold.
Oh, that's real.
Anyway, moral of the story, go call your friend, your acquaintance, your best friend, all your people. You can find us at _is_a_mother on Instagram. Please hit us up. We're trying to get fancy with some videos we're posting, so come check us out.
Well, I love you. This was a fun one because we're just winging it. We're just talking about whatever. I mean, we wing all of them, but this one,
this was definitely off the cuff,
freestyle.
Yep. All right, love you.
Love you too.
Call your best friends and share this episode. Share all our episodes. Great way for people to discover this podcast and these conversations. Also rating, because people really do check out ratings when they're looking for, they read reviews when they're looking for new stuff. So that would be a great way to show support for this podcast.
Yes. And let us know if there's some topics that you want us to talk about, to dig into, anything that may come top of mind as we're going through our episode. So definitely hit us up.
And we may get to talk to you one more time before your surgery, but in case not, because, our day-to-day
Aw,
schedule always changes drastically.
right.
We are all thinking about you. We get tons of
Thank you.
messages asking for you, asking about you, wanting to know where you are in your journey, wishing you well. So we're all thinking of you. We love you. You got this.
Thank you. And I feel that. So I love you all too. Thank you for all the support and thoughts and prayers, if you pray, and all of those things. So I appreciate all the support. I love y'all more than I can ever articulate. Love you all. Thank you.
All right. Love you. Go call your best friend.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening and being part of our conversation and our inner circle.
Follow us on Instagram, _It's a Mother Podcast. And we look forward to you and your best friends joining us next episode.
Leave a rating on this podcast app. It really helps us get our conversations to more friends out there, more friendship circles, and more women and more mothers. And that's what we're here for, to broaden the conversation, to bring everybody into the circle.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
Go call your best friend.